On a warm sunny afternoon, the streets of Maplewood, a quiet suburban neighborhood, were calm and peaceful. Birds chirped softly in the trees, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. The sun cast long shadows over neat sidewalks lined with well-kept houses. It was the kind of day where everything seemed simple and still. Walking slowly down one of these sidewalks was Mr. James Carter. He moved carefully, his service dog, Max, trotting quietly by his side. James was a calm and polite man in his early 40s, with kind eyes and a steady presence. His dog wore a special vest, marking him as a helper for James, who was deaf. James communicated mostly through sign language and a small notepad he always carried. Life for him wasn't always easy in a world that didn't stop to listen. Nearby, parked beside the curb, was Officer Daniels. His police car gleamed under the sun. Daniels was a tall, sharp-looking man with a stern face and eyes that often scanned the street with impatience. He wasn't known for kindness, especially toward people who didn't follow the rules his way. He watched James and Max with a hard look, his lips curling into a slight sneer. A quiet tension hung in the air as the officer's gaze fixed on the pair, making the peaceful street feel suddenly uneasy. 4.1 Mini James stood near the patrol car, taking a deep breath. The construction site just a block away had been making loud noises all morning, heavy machinery grinding, hammers banging, and workers shouting. It wasn't just noisy, it felt like they were trying to disturb everyone nearby, but for James, it was more than just an annoyance. The constant noise made it hard for him to concentrate, rest, and live peacefully. It felt like the world was shouting at him, drowning out the quiet he needed. He carefully approached Officer Daniels, hoping to get help. James pulled out his small notepad and pen. He wrote, "Construction is very loud, can you please help? It's disturbing my peace." He showed the note to the officer, and tried to sign some words with his hands, hoping Daniels would understand. Instead, Officer Daniels burst out laughing, a sharp, mocking sound. "What is this? Some kind of joke?" he said, smirking as he looked down at James. "You're just wasting my time." His voice was harsh, and his eyes showed no patience or respect. James felt a sting in his chest. He had hoped for understanding, not ridicule. But he didn't yell or get angry. Instead, he lowered his hands, blinked slowly, and calmly signed again, trying to explain. Then he wrote another note. "It's serious, please listen." But Officer Daniels shook his head and waved him off. "Move along, buddy, I've got better things to do than play charades with you." His tone was cold and dismissive. The message was clear: James's disability made him less worthy of attention. Some neighbors nearby had stopped what they were doing. They watched quietly, unsure what to do. No one spoke up. The silence felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath. James's heart ached, not just because of the noise outside, but because he was being ignored when he needed help most. James felt a surge of frustration, but he didn't give up. He pulled out his phone and tapped on the screen, quickly finding a video he had recorded earlier. The footage showed loud machines banging and workers shouting, shaking the windows of nearby houses. He held the phone up, hoping Officer Daniels would see the proof. But Daniels' face darkened with irritation. "You think this little video's going to change anything?" he sneered. "What are you even trying to say? Can't hear you anyway." He laughed again, cruel and mocking. "Maybe if you were paying attention you'd understand the world better." James's heart pounded. The officer's words cut deeper than the noise. He signed quickly and clearly, trying to explain that he just wanted peace and respect. Daniels didn't bother to watch the signs. Instead, he made a rude joke about deafness loud enough for others nearby to hear. "Maybe he needs a hearing aid for his attitude," Daniels said, smirking as he looked around at the growing crowd. People began to gather. Curious neighbors came closer, sensing something unfair was happening. Some whispered quietly, unsure if they should step in or stay silent. But one woman pulled out her phone and started recording the whole scene from a distance hidden from Daniel's sight. She knew this wasn't right. James felt a mix of powerlessness and determination. He looked at Max, his loyal service dog, who stood quietly beside him. James signed to Max to stay calm and focused, then he signed toward the crowd, asking for support in the only way he could. His eyes pleaded for someone to help. Officer Daniels noticed the growing audience and stiffened. His patience had run out. "All right, that's enough," he said sharply, his voice hard. "You need to leave this area now. If you don't, I'll have to arrest you for disturbing the peace." James shook his head slowly. He was scared, but he stood firm. "I will not leave until my complaint is heard," he signed firmly, refusing to back down. The tension in the air thickened, like a storm ready to break. Voices murmured among the crowd, some angry, some fearful. Officer Daniels stepped closer, his hand resting near his belt, where his badge and gun hung. James's eyes darted between the officer and the crowd, hoping for a peaceful resolution, but preparing for whatever might come next. Seconds felt like hours. The neighborhood street, usually so calm, now held a charged energy. Everyone waited, holding their breath, as the moment hung in the balance, ready to erupt, or maybe, just maybe, change everything. The moment Officer Daniels ordered James to leave was captured quietly by the bystander's phone, a steady hand recording every second. The video showed the officer's mocking laughter, his dismissive attitude, and James's calm but firm refusal to walk away. Within hours, the video was shared online, spreading quickly through social media and local community pages. People were shocked. Many had never seen such open disrespect toward a disabled person, especially from someone wearing a badge meant to protect the public. The video caught the attention of a local civil rights group, dedicated to fighting discrimination. They reached out to James immediately, offering support and guidance. News outlets soon picked up the story. Headlines called out the officer's behavior, highlighting the injustice James had faced. The story of a deaf man being laughed at while trying to seek help struck a chord with many. The quiet neighborhood was no longer quiet. It was buzzing with conversations about fairness, respect, and abuse of power. Feeling both overwhelmed and hopeful, James took a brave step. With help from the civil rights group and neighbors who had witnessed the event, he filed a formal complaint with the police department. Several neighbors came forward, signing statements about what they had seen and heard. Suddenly James was not alone. People who had once stayed silent were now speaking up, demanding accountability. The police department could no longer ignore the situation. Internal Affairs opened an official investigation into Officer Daniels' conduct. Documents revealed that this wasn't Daniels' first time facing complaints. Over the years he had been accused of dismissing voices from minority groups and people with disabilities. But those cases had never gained much attention, until now, when the whole community was watching. The police chief, a stern but fair leader, called Officer Daniels in for a disciplinary hearing. Daniels arrived, confident and defiant, but the weight of public scrutiny had begun to settle on him. The hearing room was tense as officers, lawyers, and community members gathered, waiting to hear what would happen next. Back at home, James felt a mix of emotions. He was proud of standing up, but worried about what might come next. Would Daniels try to get back at him? Would things in his neighborhood become harder? But James also knew he had support, from his family, his dog Max, the civil rights group, and neighbors who had become allies. That support gave him strength. As the hearing went on, details of the case came out. Witness testimonies, the video evidence, and the officer's past actions were laid bare. The community watched closely, hoping for justice but fearing disappointment. Every moment felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. The day of the decision approached. People whispered about what might happen. Would Officer Daniels face consequences, or walk away untouched? The suspense grew, not just for James, but for everyone who believed that respect and fairness mattered. Through it all, James held on to hope. He had spoken his truth, faced the power that tried to silence him, and found a voice not just for himself, but for others who often went unheard. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing: change was coming. The day of the court hearing arrived, and the courtroom was filled with a quiet buzz of anticipation. Community members, neighbors, and members of the local civil rights group sat in the seats, many recording the event on their phones. The hearing was open to the public, and even broadcast live on local news channels, so everyone could see the outcome of the long battle. First, the evidence was presented. The video recorded by the bystander played on a large screen. The room fell silent as Officer Daniels laughed mockingly at James's attempts to communicate. Witnesses took the stand one by one. Neighbors described how they had seen Daniels' harsh treatment and shared their concerns about the noise from the construction site. Experts on disability rights spoke firmly about the importance of respect and legal protections for people with disabilities, explaining how Daniels' behavior was not just rude but illegal discrimination. When it was Officer Daniels' turn to speak, his arrogance was clear. He tried to defend himself, saying he was just doing his job and that James had been difficult. But his tone and words only made things worse. The judge and audience could see through his excuses. Daniels' attitude came across as dismissive and disrespectful, not the behavior expected from someone sworn to protect and serve. The judge leaned forward, her voice steady but firm. This officer abused his authority by mocking a citizen's legitimate concerns and discriminating against him because of his disability. Such behavior is unacceptable in our community and in our police force. Then came the moment everyone waited for. The judge's voice echoed through the room. Officer Daniels is hereby stripped of his badge and suspended indefinitely. He will face further review before any consideration of reinstatement. Gasps and murmurs filled the courtroom. Some people looked shocked at the severity of the punishment. Others smiled with relief, feeling justice had finally been served. James sat quietly, his heart pounding. A wave of emotions washed over him: pride for standing up, sadness for the struggle it took, and hope for a future where respect is not optional but a right for everyone. The fight had been hard, but now his voice mattered. A few weeks later, James was invited to speak at a community event about disability rights and respect. Standing before a crowd of neighbors, activists and officials, he shared his story, not just about what happened, but about the strength found in persistence and the power of kindness. He looked out at the faces listening carefully and said, "Everyone deserves to be heard and treated with respect. It's not about special treatment, it's about fairness and understanding. If we all stand up for each other, we can build a world where no one is ignored because of who they are." The room filled with applause, and James knew this was only the beginning. The path ahead might still be difficult, but with courage and community, change was possible. James' story is a powerful reminder that standing up for one's rights is never easy, but it is always important. When faced with unfair treatment and cruelty, courage and persistence become tools stronger than any badge or authority. It takes strength to speak out, especially when the world tries to silence you. Through his bravery, James showed that change is possible, even when the odds seem stacked against you. His fight was not just for himself, but for everyone who has ever been ignored or dismissed because of who they are. It proves that respect and fairness can win over prejudice and power. As communities come together to listen and support one another, there is hope for a future where no one is overlooked or laughed at because of a disability. In that future, every voice matters, and every person is treated with the dignity they deserve.